Alrighty, Blake, welcome. Thanks for jumping on. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
No dramas. Look, I wouldn't mind obviously, discussing a little bit about your background first, but I guess if you can just sort of tell the audience who you are, and what you do in the crypto space.
Yeah, sure. Uh, yeah, I'm the CEO of a company called Bamboo, and we have a micro savings and micro investment platform that helps people save into digital assets such as Bitcoin, gold, silver, and Ethereum. And yeah, we've made a really great product that has a fantastic user experience that allows anyone to get started very quickly in about 90 seconds. So a great user experience. And yeah, we're currently scaling the business here and hopefully soon abroad as well.
Awesome. And how long have you been involved in Bamboo itself?
Yeah, good question. So I started as CEO about 3 months ago. However, I was involved in the project early on. Back in 2017 and 2018, the Bamboo team was raising capital through initial coin offering. And we invested, myself and some friends invested in the company in the seed round. And so we knew about it in its ideation. And then we kind of realized that, you know, the Bamboo team didn't just need money, they also needed support. So the investors, including myself, I went in as a consultant and consulted to Bamboo for about 6 months, helping them with some strategic things around capital raising, around partnerships, and just helping out wherever I could. And the team was very focused on product, and that allowed me to kind of do things that they weren't necessarily focused on or didn't have their focus on. So yeah, I did that for about 6 months. I then, um, finished that, and over the next 18 months, I kept a close eye on it. Obviously, as an investor and a supporter of the project, and then we're in a fortunate situation. We're about 7 months ago. The seed investors acquired the company off the Bamboo founders, and after a 3 or 4 month handover, then I was in a position where I had some time freeing up, and I could come in and help drive growth of the business. So yeah, that was about October, November last year, and yeah, it's been pretty fun since then.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine obviously you would have been busy. That handover period would have been, I guess, a bit of a learning curve and that sort of thing. How did you personally get started in crypto? Is this your first sort of project you've worked on, or have you had a few other things that you've done in the past as well?
Yeah, good question. So I first learned about crypto back in 2015. I was living in Sweden, and I was hanging out with some people that were uh, buying and using Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies back then. And I had some problems transferring money to a friend in Portugal and transferring money to another friend back home in Australia. And I started looking into cryptocurrency to see if I could use it as an alternative. And um, I was able to a couple times, and it was just easier than going to Western Union. It was cheaper, and it was fun and interesting learning about it. And uh, then I kind of fell down the rabbit hole. I then didn't really use it too much more. It was more of a novelty, I suppose. But I ended up moving to China a couple years later, and I kept an eye on cryptocurrencies throughout this time. And I could see that in China at this time, in about 2016, there was a strong, or 2016, 2017, there was a strong demand for crypto in China. People were using it to circumvent capital controls from the Chinese government and the restrictive nature of the Chinese banking system. So there was an arbitrage opportunity. So I started messing around with arbitrage trading, buying Bitcoins from European exchanges and American exchanges, and then selling them on Chinese exchanges, and then moving the money around and doing it all again. And it was pretty juicy back then. There was sometimes a 10% spread, and unfortunately, this is about the same time when the Chinese government started trying to ban cryptocurrencies. And then it got a little bit dodgy because one week the exchanges would be open and I could do the trades. Other weeks they could be closed and your money could be locked up for, an indefinite amount of time. So at that point, I kind of uh, pulled my money out and thought, that's probably enough for now. Don't want to mess with fire too much. And yeah, so that's kind of how I got started, like in a hobbyist way. But then when I moved back to Australia, I met some guys at a Bitcoin meetup, and they were starting an investment fund, one of Australia's first crypto investment funds. And they said they offered me a role to come work with them, doing research on the portfolio's assets and the investments. And that was, you know, 2018 when everything was going crazy. So it was a pretty interesting time to be yeah, trading crypto and working in the industry and all the observing all the crazy stuff that was going on. And yeah, that's kind of when I started working in the industry.
Yeah, awesome. What a great story. That's a pretty cool little yeah, I guess introduction to crypto. I've spoke to a few people about how they've got started, and everyone seems to have a very different story and quite a unique experience to begin with. Uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's cool to just to kind of hear about obviously, how people got started in the industry. The uh, like the fundraising, or sorry, the investment firm you were talking about you worked for. Is that run with Ben Ritchie as well?
Yeah, that's right. Ben Rich is one of the directors, is the managing director. And yeah, we used to be really active in investing in new blockchain-based startups. More recently, it's a bit more passive. It's just general exposure to digital assets. And the fund's called the Digital Fund. And it has an AFSL, and it was one of the first licensed funds in Australia. And yeah, it's going well. Obviously, over the last 12 months or 9 months, it's gone particularly well. Uh, but yeah, the fund's still going, and yeah, it's going well.
Awesome. I guess I'll explain to the viewers for those who don't know. I actually used to work for Ben in a completely different capacity to Blake. So I was working for um, Ben at Genesis Fitness in Bentley. I worked for him for maybe just over a year or so. I guess kind of just before, I guess he started to, I think, sell his stake and obviously move into the crypto world. So yeah, I guess for the viewers at home, that's kind of how I know Ben. And then through a roundabout way, obviously, I've met yourself, Blake. Can you talk to me a little bit about, obviously, Bamboo, what it is, who it's for? I think you described it as like a micro investing sort of platform. It is very easy to onboard as well. Like I've actually got the platform as well. Super easy to get started. So yeah, can you just sort of talk to us about that and how it works and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, of course. So very similar to Raise, where you can make a transaction and round up your spare change into equities. We round up your spare change into a customizable portfolio of digital assets. And Raise has been around for a while and it's a very successful model. But we wanted to build on top of that with what we believe is, this technology is the future of the financial system. And it gives us a lot of opportunity to build new and exciting features that currently don't exist or don't exist widely. And the way that it works is when you make a transaction, you can denominate for us to round up to the nearest dollar or the nearest $2. And then we take that change and we invest it for you. And it kind of functions like a digital money box. We used to come home with a pocket full of change before we used PayPass for everything. And we would put our change into a tin or into a bucket or whatever, and at the end of the month or the year or whatever, we would have, a couple $100 or a few $100. And we could use that for a holiday. We could use that to buy, some gifts for people or whatever, buy a new lounge suite. But now we've kind of lost that. Well, for a while, we lost that mechanism where, we were saving our spare change because everything's traded to the cent. So Yeah, we provide the opportunity for people to save without really noticing it, saving incrementally over time, very small amounts. So it's good for all age groups and people of all, socioeconomic levels. And, you know, people can at the end of the year potentially have $1,000 to go on a holiday with. And, you know, I think this is a really good strategy to invest into cryptocurrencies. They're notoriously volatile, so putting all your savings in maybe isn't always the best idea. However, putting your spare change in gives people a exposure to it without too much risk. It also gives them the opportunity of getting some pretty good upside if Bitcoin and the sector goes on a bull run.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's how I try and describe the platform to people when they ask me about it as well. I actually learned about Bamboo through my chiropractor of all people.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. Cool.
yeah, basically he was saying, have you heard of this app called Bamboo? It's very similar to Raise, except instead of obviously investing in the stock market, it invests in crypto. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't actually heard about that. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Down, obviously, yeah, got started within like 90 seconds and started using it. So
Wow.
very friendly. It's quite easy to operate. So
Yeah. So how did you get in touch? How did you find out that Ben was one of the directors?
I launched this podcast maybe about a month ago, and a few people sort of hit me up saying, "Hey, you should speak to a couple of different people within the industry." And Ben was one of the people that a couple of my good friends had mentioned. Um, and it just so happened that I still had his mobile number. I hadn't spoken to him for a little while, to be honest. Obviously, going separate ways, and both just doing sort of different things. I hadn't really spoken to him for a little while, and then yeah, I spoke to him late last week, and we spoke on the phone for like about 40 minutes, and it was like we hadn't. It was like we were good friends that we'd yeah, basically just chatted for like 40 minutes. I spoke to Ben about his introduction to crypto, and then he got chatting obviously about the Bamboo project, and yeah, so it's
Yeah.
interesting. It's
Yeah.
cool.
It's really cool. Nice one.
Yeah. Um, so how did you like acquire Bamboo? You said that you were, I guess, part of the initial like fundraising round, and then obviously you worked as a consultant for a little while, and then I guess you guys sort of decided that you wanted to the platform in full, or what sort of happened?
Yeah. So we could see the growth potential of Bamboo, and the founding team built a world-class product. It's amazing what they've been able to achieve in the period of time and the budget that they had. Uh, and we had strong capability on the commercial side, capital raising, developing partnerships, and running businesses such as Ben had run big businesses before or medium-sized businesses before. And we just thought it was a great opportunity for us to create value in this business. So we negotiated terms with the founding team, and we're still they're still helping us out in different capacities, which is great. Uh, and yeah, we've kind of taken over the scaling journey, and yeah, we're happy. We're happy we made that decision because over the 7 months it was a little bit difficult handing over the technical component of the business. None of the people who've come in and brought the business are uh, technically trained. No one's a CTO or a software developer. So handing that over did have its challenges, but we were able to stabilize it. We brought on a group in Ukraine named Tech Magic, and they have a really great service. And we have about 7 developers there now helping us out, manage the platform and building features and functionality and expanding its use case. So yeah, and we've been also because of the founding team is only involved now in, I suppose, an advisory capacity. We've had to build all the new business functions up, so the marketing team, the tech team, the operational team. So it did take some time. It took about 6 months, but now we're reposturing and focusing on growth, which is different to that building stage. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously you've got some pretty cool things lined up in the pipeline, I guess. Like I've heard about Bamboo through um, Nuggets News, who
Yeah.
obviously is run by Alex Saunders. He's obviously quite a well-known person within the industry. So you've obviously got like quite a few, I guess, like well-known people behind the project. Is that correct?
Yeah, there are a few advocates, that have been following our project over the years, and some of those guys that have used the app and support us, also publicly advocate for us, which is great. They know that we've been working hard to build a great product and service. So I think that just comes naturally. So yeah, it's really great to have people like that support us. And he's quite well trusted in by Australians, and a bit of a source of truth for many people, even for myself. I know I've been following him for years, and I think he's really level-headed, and he provides good advice to everyone, and yeah, something that I think everyone can take on. Yeah.
Yeah, I would totally agree. He's got a great platform. Obviously, offers some great advice. I really like his website as well. He's got a whole bunch of free content on there, which is really cool. So, yeah, he's a great person to have in the space. Talk to me a little bit about your, I guess, like product roadmap. Where are you sort of looking to take Bamboo at this stage?
Yeah, really good question. So it's pretty exciting because with this technology, it allows us to do many things that have traditionally been not possible, such as what we do is buy micro save fractional parts of gold and silver. Previously, if we wanted to go buy gold and silver, there was obviously you have to store it somewhere, and that's expensive, and there's a process of going and picking it up if you want to store it yourself. But being able to buy $20 or $10 or a few cents at a time, is novel, and yeah, it gives us the opportunity to do things, that haven't previously been done. So some of the things that we're working on, are yielding assets. So in the same way that a high interest savings account works, or a term deposit, we will be able to provide our users with a yield on their Bitcoin, Ethereum, and potentially even their gold. This could be anywhere between 4 and 8% per annum, and we aim to settle this daily or weekly, in a pro rata sense. So that's really exciting. And we also looking to list a stable coin. And for those that don't know what a stable coin is, it's a digital token that's pegged to the price of a fiat currency, a government currency, such as the US dollar or the Australian dollar. And it allows for easy trading between digital assets. So if someone wants to sell their Bitcoin, they can easily sell that into a stable coin, like an Australian stable coin. And we can also provide a yield on that. And the yields on these coins go from anywhere from 8% per annum to 13% per annum. And you could just imagine, instead of putting your savings into a high interest term deposit and getting, I don't know what it is, 2% maybe if you're lucky, 2.5% per annum, uh, putting it into the Bamboo app, and you'll be able to receive, maybe 4 times that. So this is a really unique offering, and one that's not really available to people in the traditional financial sector. So people say that blockchain technology democratizes finance, and with these types of features and functionality, it really does. Yeah, so there's a lot of incremental improvements that we'll be doing to the app to just improve the user experience. Trading in and out of assets more easily. We're implementing a reward system. So for those users that are, moving their trading more in the platform, they'll get rewarded for that kind of activity. And yeah, in the long term, there's a lot of possibilities of joining things like a debit card to your Bamboo account, transacting crypto from one account to another. But yeah, there's there's really a lot that we could do, but yeah, mainly just starting with the yield feature.
Awesome. The
Mm.
yield feature sounds really good. Obviously, that's quite popular in the crypto space at the moment. You mentioned a bit earlier as well. You're looking to expand internationally. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we want to expand into US. That's where the big market is, and we think that's where our product is a little bit more relevant. And I think to talk to that a little bit more, our app helps people hedge against something called quantitative easing. And quantitative easing is the process of governments printing money to be able to stimulate the economy. And our currencies and inflationary currencies because they can be inflated with the printing of money. And as we know, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are deflationary. It means that there's a fixed amount. There's only 21 million Bitcoins, and that's all there can ever be. And there's less and less supply of that Bitcoin, the more and more people that are purchasing it. Okay, so the a lot of people and a lot of companies are starting to hedge out of fiat currencies, particularly the US dollar, because they're printing trillions of dollars. I think in the um, last year they printed 23% of all US dollars in circulation. So you can imagine if you have money in your bank account in a savings, in a high interest savings account, at the end of the year, you know, if you adjust it with the inflation, it could actually be worth less value than what you started off with. So, a lot of people are starting to realize this, and hedging out of the economy incrementally over a period of time into Bitcoin and Ethereum or gold and silver allows people to hedge against the negative macroeconomic effects of this. And we're starting to see this with large companies in the States. We're seeing it with Tesla. They just bought, I think it was $1.5 billion in Bitcoin. We've seen it with a company called MicroStrategy. And, it's my hypothesis that, most companies will eventually have to own a portion, have a portion of their balance sheet invested into digital assets as a hedge against all this crazy stuff that's happening in the economy. And this creates an interesting situation. So once all these large companies start putting hundreds of millions and billions of dollars in to a deflationary asset class or a finite asset class, then it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Now, I think that was the precursor to us, wanting to move into the US because our app helps people hedge against this. So some of the worst effects of this in the West are in the States. All right. And it's a massive market. It's like, 10 times bigger than the market here. And yeah, we're already getting a lot of traction there. I think we have about 27,000 people on our waiting list. So we're currently setting up the infrastructure, building our partnerships there to launch in the US or sometime this year. I'm not sure when it will be. I'm not sure how hard it's going to be. But at the moment, we're just setting up the payment rails, the banking, the company structures, and all those sorts of things. And hopefully we'll get there down the track. And we've got a few people helping us. We've got some guys on the ground over there. So yeah, it's hopefully mid-year.
Yeah, awesome. Very exciting. Have you had like many challenges, obviously, trying to take the product from Australia over to the US? Like, have there been sort of some major hurdles you've had to jump through, or has it been relatively easy?
Yeah, we're kind of just still in the starting stage of it, but some of the key challenges are, the different laws and tax laws that relate to all the various jurisdictions in the US. So here in Australia, you would need to get legal advice around, how your product relates to the laws with regards to just Australia. But in the US, you need to get that legal advice for all the jurisdictions that you want to roll out in. So this is complex and time consuming and expensive. So yeah, going through that. And also the payment rails. So their banking system works different to ours. So hooking into their banking system Um, does need a bit of work and a bit of tweaking on our end, but nothing that's a roadblock.
Yeah. Will the app essentially, be the same? So like an Australian customer, they would obviously go to the US, and obviously use the app over there. Will the app, stay the same, obviously transferring from Australia to the US, or is it going to be slightly different based off of those, um, different infrastructures and stuff that you were just talking about?
Yeah, no, it'd be pretty much the same. Yeah, we're going to keep as much the same as we possibly can, and yeah, allow people to move between regions as well. So yeah, there shouldn't be any problems there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Um, I was going to ask you, are there any other, similar projects within the crypto space that you know of? Or I mean, I feel like Bamboo's relatively unique, but you would obviously know better than I would. Is there any other sort of projects that are similar that you see that have, some form of potential like yourself or?
Yeah, so obviously Raise has you can allocate a portion of your portfolio into Bitcoin, but we do believe that we're ahead of them in the development cycle, or more on the edge of cutting edge features. And they have to be quite strict in the way that they operate because they operate under a AFSL. Yep. So, yeah, that is similar. There are other competitors in the US and in Europe, but no one's really nailed it. No one's scaled in the same way that Acorns and Raise has. And we're lucky enough to have two of the early team members from Acorns US on our team as advisors, and they brought on the first 2 million users. So they're really helping us attack not only the Australian market, but also the US market. Um, but yeah, there's probably other overlapping companies that we think are doing really well, and one of these is called Celsius. And I don't know if your audience has heard of Celsius before, but they're basically it's what I believe is the future of banking. So they are kind of like a savings app, kind of like a crypto exchange, kind of like a lending service where you can borrow money, but their core business is depositing your Bitcoin with them and getting a yield on it, and getting different rewards for yielding certain amounts over different periods of time. And they've done really well, and I think it's companies like this that are going to be the future of banking. I think banking as we know it is going to become more or less obsolete. A lot of what our banks do, like store our money, give us loans, provide, very uh, bottom of the barrel financial advice, transfers of money. These are all things that can be automated and done with code. You don't need these behemoth banks basically administering these things. So it's going to be really interesting how it ends up. And Celsius have seen incredible growth, and yeah, it's great to watch and see.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with the stating that you think that banking's probably gonna change quite a bit, and the traditional sort of banking system that we have is obviously going to change in the future. My background is banking.
All
Uh,
right.
I spent about 3 years in the like retail banking sector. And yeah, like I'd tell people I work for a bank, and they would always ask me like, oh, where did you study? Like, what did you have to study? And I haven't actually studied at the tertiary level whatsoever. Basically, you go through like a 6 week crash course in, different products that the bank offers, and what constitutes advice or general advice, or no advice. And yeah, it's quite funny. Like anyone can basically get a job at a bank. It's quite simple. Um, and you're totally right as well about the different sort of products that they offer. They're very bottom of the barrel. I think you described it, which is totally on the money. Um, they don't offer a massive savings amount at the moment. I think interest rates on savings accounts are south of 1%. Um, the only sort of, I guess, situation I could see where it would probably be worth having a little bit of money in an account would be, if you've got a mortgage and you've got an offset account, that would probably be quite a unique scenario where you might consider having some money or something like that in a bank account. But obviously, you're speaking about earning yield off of your crypto and stuff like that, and earning between 4, 8. I think you also mentioned maybe 13% at some point as well. Obviously, that's massive. It's three of sorry 13 times what the banking sector at the moment can sort of offer customers in terms of what they're getting for their money. So quite an interesting, I guess, a couple of years ahead for the banking and finance system, especially here in Australia. I think people are going to start obviously educating themselves a bit more about money and finance and trying to get the most out of um, obviously their money. Do you guys see Bamboo itself leading, more towards possibly maybe offering a lending product or something like that down the future, or even
Yeah.
insurance, something like that?
Yeah,
Have you any plans for that sort of stuff?
Yeah, potentially. Having doing asset-backed lending similar to Celsius is certainly an attractive product. Um, what can be difficult is that you do need credit licensing for that sort of stuff. So we're not really sure if we're going to go down that pathway. At the moment, we're in a fortunate situation where cryptocurrency isn't classed as a financial product in Australia, so we don't need an AFSL license. Once you start doing licensing products that require licensing, there's a lot of more compliance, and that can slow us down. But yeah, I think what's really interesting though, these companies like Celsius, they have asset-backed lending as opposed to just straight up debt. Now, this means that your lending, whatever you borrow, is um, it's like backed by something, it's secured, right? And I think that this is cool because it encourages better financial behavior. People aren't going into debt, they're just borrowing against the assets that they have. And this also reduces the risk not only for the borrower, but also for the lender, because if you say miss a payment, they can use a piece of code that can automatically sell down a portion of your assets. It doesn't need any administration. It doesn't ruin your credit rating. It just happens, in the background. It's like self-driving money, programmable money, which is what this technology was built for, and it creates all these interesting use cases that just weren't possible previously. And yeah, and what I believe is better financial behavior.
Yep. Where do you see the crypto space sort of heading? Obviously, lending products are becoming quite popular. I think the insurance space is becoming relatively popular. I see a lot of well-known people within the mainstream, um, like pop culture and stuff like that, like Gary Vaynerchuk and a couple of other those sorts of people talking about NFTs, becoming quite popular. Where do you sort of see the space heading?
Yeah, so there's a lot of experimentation. People experimenting and seeing what works and what doesn't. Um, what we've seen recently is the prevalence of a sector or a subsector called DeFi, which stands for decentralized finance, which is basically like almost like decentralized banking. It's people providing liquidity for markets, for trading platforms, others providing liquidity for lending, and others borrowing. And this is all done without any intermediaries. It's all done via some code that runs on a block on the Ethereum blockchain. And I think this is the future of finance. To be honest, I think the whole financial system is going to be rebuilt on this at some point in time, or at least portions of it. And there's a lot of efficiencies. There's less counterparty risk. Um, at the moment, we're seeing some of the blockchains have scaling solutions. The lack of scaling solutions, and doing transactions on them is quite expensive and can be slow. So I think there's still a long way to go before these can be, you know, mm, used more broadly, because there is a certain ceiling or a capacity to them at the moment. but yeah, that's with regards to Ethereum and kind of this programmable money. I think with regards to Bitcoin, it's always going to be used as a store of value, and we're seeing that more and more as larger sums of money come in, and we see these big Wall Street guys and these big companies come in, and even we're going to start seeing governments come in and put a portion of their treasury in, and yeah, I think you mentioned NFTs and digital art and all these sorts of things. And this is, I see this as, experimentation, you know, and it's created a lot of value and a lot of speculation. But I'm not sure where this is going to go. But it is certainly interesting to watch, and it allows us to, create these unique products that can't be replicated in a digital world, um, and value can be attributed to them. So uh, people are experimenting, and yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. I think you know, 2020 and 2021 have, both already been quite interesting years for the crypto space. Obviously, most recently with Elon Musk and Tesla sort of jumping on board, investing in Bitcoin. Um, Obviously, you sort of lived through the 2017, 2018 era where Bitcoin sort of last had its bull run, I guess you could call it. How does that kind of differ from the current sort of bull cycle we're in? What do you sort of feel is different? Is it
Mm.
institutions and stuff jumping on board, or where do you kind of personally feel that I guess the two bull cycles sort of differ?
Yeah, so the 2017, 2018 bull market felt like it was driven by retail investors. It was people coming in, chucking 5 grand, 10 grand on. People were punting on ICOs on crypto startups. And this was really driving the market. People, weren't looking for entries or exits. People were just buying because people had fear of missing out. People thought, this is going to be the new economy. There were believers and non-believers, and the believers were, having a good punt. So it was fascinating, particularly looking at all the crazy behavior that was happening. Obviously, crypto at that time was pretty much unregulated. So in financial markets on the stock exchange, there's pretty strict rules and regulations of what you can and can't do. But obviously none of that existed back in 2017, 2018 in crypto. It was like the Wild West, and yeah, it's very interesting. But this bull run is very different. It feels like it's not driven so much by retail investors, even though that is a factor. It looks like that the payment rails have started to mature. There's more ways for more money to come in. There's safer ways. There's better custody solutions. Banks. I know there was some rules and regulation changes in the US where banks can act as custodians in some circumstances for digital assets. So it feels like the sector is maturing. However, will just caveat that by saying that it does feel like it's still in its infancy. The internet took 30 years or at least 20 years to get to some sort of maturity. And I think the blockchain technology will take a similar amount of time. Bitcoin's been around for, I think, 11 years, 12 years maybe. And these newer blockchains that have smart contracting, that function more like as programmable money, like Ethereum and like Cardano or other blockchains like this. They're even newer. They're only like 5 years old, 4 years old, 6 years old, and this technology takes 10 years, 20 years to build out to its full capability. And so in that sense, we're in its infancy, but yeah, Bitcoin's certainly getting there. People are using it as a store of value and looking at it seriously as an alternative to gold or a hedge against fiat currency.
Yeah. Yeah, I see a lot of the bigger sort of more well-known people, I guess, in the crypto space. Yeah, more talking about Bitcoin being a store of value, I guess, as opposed to, being a peer-to-peer sort of payment system, which is what it was sort of, I guess, first designed for. Um,
Mm,
it's going to be interesting to see, obviously, how that all sort of plays out. Obviously, there's, quite a few different projects in the crypto space. You've got the main ones like, obviously Bitcoin. You mentioned Ethereum. Do you see any other, you know, projects within the space, becoming quite, mainstream and more used over the next couple of years at all?
mm. Yeah, I used to dabble in the dark arts and look at the look at the more speculative projects, but as of late, to be honest, I don't really go down the list outside much out of Bitcoin and Ethereum. There are a couple I know, like Theatre, which I think a couple of the ex-executives of YouTube looking to develop a decentralized streaming service. That's really interesting. Uh, but when we look down the list of different cryptocurrencies, they seem to just be derivatives or copies of Bitcoin and Ethereum, and they're trying to, create incremental or improvements with regards to its functionality, its transaction speeds or its scalability. But none of these, Bitcoin and Ethereum are first to market. They have the first to market advantage. So I think that any of these guys that are trying to compete with them, or these ones that have different qualities, I don't think they need to be marginally better if they're going to if they're going to, um, you know, do better than Bitcoin and Ethereum or be more widely used, then they would need to be orders of magnitude better than Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I just don't think that, I just don't see that happening. So I kind of don't look too deeply into the smaller projects anymore. But no, it is still interesting hearing about novel ideas or things that groups are doing to be able to improve the sector. And what I believe will happen over time is that we will just see all the chains link up and they be used almost like as a mesh. This that people can use Bitcoin for storing value. They can use Ethereum for doing smart contracts, and they might be able to use Dash or Monero for private transactions. And you'll be able to quite easily interchange value between the different chains and information. And it's that I think that's what's going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, very interesting. Quite an interesting perspective. And yeah, I still dabble. I sort of, day trade quite a few different altcoins, and I'm sort of, always trying to keep my ear to the ground on, different projects that are cropping up that I think might do well.
Have you heard of anything interesting recently, or anything that you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm looking at a guy on YouTube's got quite a big following, Elio Trades. He's basically got a project called Supercom now coming out, which I think's NFT based.
Okay.
From my experience, what I've noticed trading, like different altcoins, the project can be, complete trash, but if it's got a really good, like well-known person behind it, um, you're gonna probably, if you get in the right time at least, you're probably gonna make, a decent amount of money off the project itself if you can kind of time it. So I try and look at projects that, um, one that I find interesting that are, going to solve a unique problem within the space, and two, have a I guess, a good sort of marketing like strategy, or at least someone who's relatively well known in the space behind the project. I don't know if that's been your experience as well when you were back in the day dabbling in the dark arts, but yeah, that's certainly been my experience. Trying to pick different projects that I think are going to do quite well. I think the space will. I'm interested to see yeah, how lending sort of starts to work out. I'm interested to see how insurance and stuff um, in the space goes as well. I think yield farms, only getting bigger and bigger, which is quite cool. Um, yeah, there's a few different sort of things that I'm kind of keeping my eye on. I don't want to say the names of too many different projects, as I don't want people to go like, oh, Ryan said this, and
Yeah,
maybe it doesn't work out so well. So
totally.
it's going to be an interesting couple of years I think for the space, which is cool. A lot of growth potential.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. Look, is there anything else you wanted to add at all, Blake? I know we've been speaking for about 40 odd minutes. Is there anything you wanted to add to obviously the discussion?
Yeah, no, not really. Yeah, you know, thanks for having me. It's been great talking about the project and about crypto. I'm always always open to having a chat about crypto. And yeah, I look forward to hopefully speaking again at some point.
Yeah, most definitely. Just quickly before we leave, how does someone get started with the obviously the Bamboo app? It's obviously quite easy to download and get started and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Just head to our website, getbamboo.io, and you can have a look at how the app functions. You can download the app from there and learn a little bit more. And yeah, you can just do a Google search and you'll be able to find us as well. So yeah,
Beautiful, awesome. Blake, thanks so much for your time. Obviously, good luck with the project. I'm looking forward to following you guys and hopefully seeing big things come out of the project this year.
awesome. Thanks so much, Ryan, for having me.
No dramas. Take care. Thank you.
Cheers.